Okay, as you're coming in, find your seats. We are going to start out with the swag bag giveaway this morning. Again, I guess it's the afternoon now, so come on in. Find your seats, please. Make your way quickly. Okay. All right. Now, I know there's a couple people still coming in. If you can move down the aisles as quickly as possible, please, and choose a seat. Let people pass. Want to get in as many people as possible. Okay. All right, now, I want to find out who here has the most kids. And when I say kids, I mean that's personal children that live with you and your family, not classroom kids, okay? If you have at least, can you hear me? Okay. If you have at least 3 personal children that live with you and your family, would you please stand? Who has at least 3? At least 3. Okay, remain standing. Remain standing if you have 5. Remain standing if you have 5. Okay. All right. I want to make sure I can tell who's standing because yesterday it got a little hard for me to tell. All right. So it seems like all right. Remain standing if you have 7. 7. Okay. All right, so it seems like to me, wave, is there one in the back that's still standing? No, okay, so I have a couple right here and they looked at each other in a very knowing way when I asked this question. And we have one in the back here as well. Okay, so how many children do you all have? 7. How many do you have? I have 5, so there's 7 of us. Okay, I'm gonna go with the 7 here, all right? Here we go, well done. All right, let's find out how many of you have taught somewhere internationally. If at any point in your teaching career you have taught internationally, go ahead and stand. All right, go ahead and stand if you have taught internationally. All right, if the place where you taught was at least 500 miles away from Greenville, sit down. If it was within 500 miles, so it has to be more than 500 miles away. All right. If the place where you taught internationally did not use BJU Press, sit down. Oh, there you go. I got some of them down. All right. So now it looks like we have one here, and one here. All right. How many years did you teach internationally? 15? Oh, she won. 5? Okay, we're going to do these 3 ladies right here, these 3 ladies. Oh, do we have another one? You have to wave. All right, and how many years did you teach internationally? Okay, maybe 5. Do we have enough for 4 prizes? All right, these 4. All right, good job. Let's give them a hand. All right, and the last swag bag giveaway today is we're going to find out who has been involved in Christian education the longest. All right, Christian education the longest. That could be as, are you listening, a teacher? You could be an administrator, curriculum coordinator. So if you have been involved in Christian education for at least 5 years, you stand. Anybody who's been involved for at least 5 years. All right, look at that. Wow, that's great. All right. If you've been involved for at least 10 years, stay standing. 10 years. So if it's less than 10, go ahead and sit down. All right. What about 15 years? 15 years. If you've been involved in Christian education for 15 years, stay standing. All right, 20, 25. All right, I lost some there. Okay, I was getting worried for a minute. All right. All right, 30. If you've been involved in Christian education for 30 years, stay standing. All right, 35. Getting a couple people out here. All right, let me see how many people sit down. 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. Okay, we lost 2 on 40. So right here, over 40, how many years? 43. And you in the back? 46. Let's give them a hand. Oh, I got another one. 44. All right, so we've got 3. Okay, they are going to be passing out those swag bags, and I'm going to announce the trivia winners. BJU Press Trivia. The question 7 was, what was the first textbook published by BJU Press? And the answer was physical science. Physical science. The $25 Amazon winner is Tanya Hahn. All right, so she's over here. Virtually, it is Mary Bucci. So Mary, be on the lookout for that email certificate there for Amazon. The $10 Starbucks in person, Rebecca Chard. Where's Rebecca? All right, I hear people cheering, but where is she? Okay, you gotta wave, gotta be able to see you. Virtually, it's Mackenzie Gleason. So Mackenzie, be on the lookout. Question 8, which one is not an educational distinctive for BJU Press? And the answer that was not an educational distinction was memorize to master. All right, memorize to master. It was biblical rigor, I'm just mixing them all up. Academic rigor, biblical worldview, and critical thinking. All right, so in person, Ursula Fagerstrom. All right, she's over here. And virtual, Stacy Smith. The $10 Starbucks in person, Allison McMickle. All right, over here. And virtual, Seth Van Dyke. And then the last question for today was, which was not a theme for BJU Press Biblical Worldview Shaping? And it was resurrection. It was creation, fall, redemption. So which one was not resurrection? In person, Amazon, Alex Phillips. Is Alex here? All right, right here. Virtually, it's Sarah Choate. So Sarah, be on the lookout there. The Starbucks card is Robin Dean. Is Robin here? Robin Dean. All right, maybe she took a long lunch. So the backup is Zach Griffin. Is Zach here? No? So we don't have Robin or Zach. Then I'm going to go with another backup, Olivia Breland. All right, there you go. The virtual Starbucks winner is Jill Bell. So virtual people, be on the lookout for an email with those gift cards. Now, if you're still having questions about that CEU credit or the process to obtain that credit, check out the information video that's been posted to Whova. You actually have until August 21st to submit requests for the CEU credit. So it's not like if you don't do it today, you're not going to ever be able to do it. You have until August 21st. A question that's been asked a lot is, are we going to be able to watch the virtual sessions after the conference is over? And the answer to that is yes. All virtual sessions are going to be available to all of the conference attendees, whether you came in person and, of course, virtually. And you can view these through August 7th. All right, so you still have a little bit of time, August 7th to view them and August 21st to request the CEU credit. Now, the last reminder is there's no keynote session tomorrow. So we've all been used to rushing into Stratton Hall. There is no keynote session tomorrow morning. You're going to go directly to the breakout session of your choice. If you do come to this building, Renton Rathburn is doing a breakout in here, so you would be welcome to stay for that. So just remember, no keynote session in the morning, directly to your breakouts. Our speaker this afternoon is Dr. Shane Blanton, so let's give him a big welcome.
Same time, different day. Lunchtime sitting on you. Today, we want to rein in the chaos a little bit and sort of talk through look at some concrete numbers, look at some data about where we are. But before we do that, I want to just take a second. We're here at Bob Jones. I got the privilege of seeing the press yesterday, and if you have not seen it, you should. And just the nature, and I love science, I love math, but they have a new printer that's printing, I don't know, millions of books a second it seems, but just the engineering that goes into it, what's here, who's involved. I think the number is 400 plus people are involved sort of in the materials that some of we use at our schools and those things, and sort of what does it take. I think I took materials for granted. As a head of school, that just punched a button and they arrived. And it's so much more. But the care, the detail, and just if you live within an opportunity, and I'm probably saying things that Jim and them would want me to say, but to tour the press or to have children see it is absolutely amazing. Just the engineering that goes into printing a book from sort of start to finish and the number that it can do is amazing. So an opportunity for science and STEM right here on campus, and what does it look like? So thinking about yesterday and looking at the landscape for today, I hope there's a couple of things that you heard yesterday. And one is sort of, trying to build a framework for looking at where we are so that tomorrow we can talk about sort of what's the solutions, or if we have any solutions, or is Christian education just in trouble in general? But yesterday is about the relationship and about the truth, and really sort of what hovers over it. And we talked about fear and knowing that the Lord doesn't give us that spirit of fear, but of power and of sound mind. But knowing we have an adversary, and fear is a concern. And fear sort of shapes that relationship inside of a school. Yes? And then just the general noise and chaos around you. We ask a lot of you. We talked about not respecting the profession yesterday. But there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of issue around you that's arriving in your classrooms. Aside from teaching, aside from what we ask you to do, but there's a lot of noise. And then there's that key element of relationship and the aspect of parents. And so before we get started, sort of looking at parent spheres, and I think two things highlighted, it's really just all of their faults are sort of on display, and you know it. I have 4 boys, and I would always be concerned. Everything in the Blanton household was on full display every day as we rolled into school. Some days are better than others. Anyway, and we could talk about relationships and birth order there, but 2 of my children know me as a head of school, and my relationship with them is totally different than the other 2 that have no idea what I do on a day in and day out basis. But the other side of that is really just the fear and anxiety that they have. And then you have a knowledge base over their children that they may not know. And so people that are control freaks, or that's unnerving. They want a partner, but they don't know. And I think it's really the impetus is on us as teachers to really govern that. And I think the other side is our fears. And we do, whether we want to just sort of say it or whether it's sort of out there in the open, we've all said it, I've said it, I don't want to deal with them. You have, yes, maybe, I just don't want that, or I've identified that. I'd rather deal with, I think the thing when we do scheduling is one of those things we'll talk about tomorrow, but, every good teacher that I've had would always want to teach about 5 people and the very best students and nobody else, and we'd have a great classroom. Well, I agree with you. Perfect parents, great students that are motivated. I could even teach that class. And then I think the other one is a real fear, and that's that last one. And is that somehow that parental influence over the administration, and they're going to come in and change something. True? It's in the back of our mind somehow that if I, as a parent, cause enough problems or an issue, that somehow the issue is going to come back to me. I know I'm one of those as an administrator, and I'm guilty of it. But it puts sort of that, it's hard to teach in a position of fear or the belief that our job sort of may be in jeopardy. And my encouragement to you is that's not part of the process. Fear and that relationship, you being truthful and you being diligent to what God called you to do, then we have to believe the Lord's true and he's going to take care and protect you. It doesn't mean things are not going to happen. That doesn't mean issues are not going to be there, but that fear is there. True? Yes? So maybe we didn't hear that in all the noise yesterday, sort of the craziness around school, the paradigm. One other thing that I'll mention, I appreciate some of these questions. The others, I posted the link for all these videos, the educational paradigm, the millennials in the workforce, the nail, and then the one we'll see today, okay? So today really, so you took yesterday in the relationship aspect. Today we want to go in and really look at the why. I need you to make a shift in your mind about that relationship and truth. And then the other is, why are we doing what we're doing and sort of there? So as you sort of think through this, think about the dysfunction that's institutionalized that we need to get rid of. And the other is sort of, what's my part? Because we're gonna look at some numbers and we're gonna look at sort of Mississippi's numbers. I know that sort of gives you should be better than this. We can just get this out in the open. You know, I know you have conflict and we're in South Carolina, but a lot of you between Clemson and South Carolina, I'll just go ahead and give a plug since I'm in front. I'm more of a South Carolina fan than I am a Clemson fan, but we're right down the road. I know. I have a son that plays for them, but we have just as much animosity in Mississippi between Ole Miss and Mississippi State. So grew up with it. That to say, where are you? Make the shift. Let's look at this, but what's your part? When we look at numbers, a lot of times we want to say it's someone else's fault. And today I want you to get past that and say, I don't care. How do we peel back the onion and look at it and say, let's tackle it? We can't do this anymore to say it's somebody else's or we'll just keep doing. I think we're at a pretty pivotal point, and I think Christian education and independent education as a whole is going to play a vital role. But I think you're going to be under attack for what you do. I think there's going to be an entrance of people into what you do, wanting what you do because it's different. People are drawn to light. But in that is going to be difficult. And so I think for us, the part of that is to really look at it and say, where's the problem and let's fix it. You're all smart people. You're wise as far as education is concerned. We've got people with 40 plus years of experience sitting in the room. We've seen this. We know this. But and yet we do the same thing over and over, even when the numbers may support it. Are you innovative in the classroom? Do you use the resources around you? I want you to watch this clip to start out with, just to talk about the why.
This is called How Do I Know? And a lot of times when people hear the phrase, how do I know, the next thing they say is what? How do I know what? But the key really isn't to know what, the key is to know why. Because when you know your why, you have options on what your what can be. For instance, my why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. My what is stand-up comedy. My what is writing books. My what can be going out with some friends to eat. In fact, another what that has moved me towards my why is a web series that we have out now called Break Time. So every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, you should subscribe to the channel. We do a series called Break Time on YouTube. So 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode. One episode in particular, I'm about to show you a clip to. We were in Winston-Salem. So Break Time, this is how it works. I travel the country, I do stand-up comedy, probably an hour and a half at an event. And in the middle of my show, I'll just sit down and start talking to the audience. And funny just happens. Or I'll meet somebody who's really interesting. So I met this one guy, and he said that he teaches music at a school. I was like, all right, you teach music, can you sing? And then I'm just gonna show you the clip. Check it. So you're a musical director. Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing, you know what I'm saying?
All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Right now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. So here's the thing. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time I asked him to sing, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what has more impact because you're walking in or towards your purpose.
That's amazing. If that just doesn't make chills go up your spine, just do you have that in your classroom? I know you can do what you do, but do you have that? Whatever that is, that extra, that purpose about your classroom. Yes? No? Maybe? We should. If we believe, and I would say that you in the room feel it, that you've been called to do this, then we should have that passion and purpose about what we do. And to do that, I think we have to be deliberate and look at sort of what's there. I don't think we can do the same things. And so today, remember, you can go ahead and eat some Skittles because we're not going to be on Skittle land for a while. We're just going to go down and sort of look at some real numbers and talk about it a minute. Because I don't think it's pretty. One of the things we'll talk about sort of post-pandemic stuff in the podcast later, but I'm not sure how we were doing before. I know, or I can see the numbers of what the pandemic did, and now I'm looking at it afterwards, and the chaos we talked about yesterday is in full bloom, and that was just one of those things. And here we are. And my challenge and charge to you is, how do you fix it? How do you continue to present the gospel and be in front of folks and have that academic rigor that draws people? We already know kids don't necessarily love school. The pandemic made us apathetic. Or purpose, they don't see a purpose in school. If I could do it online or holding my phone, why do I do it? If I've got ChatGPT and I can ask Google anything, what else is there to know? Or Dolly, and they can just paint a picture for me too. So we got it all covered. So what's your role? What's your purpose? We need effective teachers. You understand that challenge. I think these are some areas that I really want you to think about. So, continue. If you didn't think it was we're in sort of where we are in the first place, these are some issues that I think I write some stuff for our school leaders about things that are showing up in our schools. And we talk about this sort of at that administration level, but the remnants of it are showing up in your classroom. And that's just the culture war will continue. And sort of how does it make it into our classrooms? What are we doing in our schools to write contracts or handbooks that deal with sexuality and all of those things? Do we deal with it? How do we deal with it? How do we deal with that sinful nature of men? How do we deal with it in children? How do we deal with it in parents? Accommodations, the pandemic sort of brought a title on to everyone and sort of set the stage that we need this individualized attention. More money, I think the figure was 5 to 6 years worth of budget was poured into government schools during the pandemic, meaning they were 4 and 5 times the operational rate of what they had. So if they were already operating at $11,000 to $20,000 rate per child, maybe in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $100,000. Think about that, per child, money that's, and I know we don't see it. I don't see it, but those dollars are around. You look at that, and sort of the other is me not wanting to take responsibility for where my children sit in the stage of life, and then expecting you to do it, so I want you to accommodate it. I might have made a 36 on the ACT if I'd had 3 hours, could spread it over a week, and said done and done. I'm kidding. Anyway, I don't know. Religious rights and those things will be tested as never before. Do you know what you believe? Are you sure in those? Are you solid that you understand that all Scripture is given by inspiration of God, power, for doctrine, reproof, and correction to righteousness? Is that part of sort of who you are? Is it ingrained into the fabric of what you do? The other is just sort of the nature of big business and sports. You say, well, maybe that doesn't happen, but this NIL is going to change our high schools. You may not believe so, but we told you yesterday, every parent wants a 36 on their ACT, a Division I quarterback, and then want them to be president of the student body. It's there. And that NIL sort of fuels that. 1% of our students out of independent schools go on to the next level and participate. Think about that and how much effort and time we put that into our schools. As running through the pandemic, I could have hired 2 people to answer the phone every day about going to school and doing what we're doing, and we pushed it. Mississippi's first. We went more school than anybody else in the country, but it was probably 100 to 1 of calls of why aren't we playing sports. They didn't care if we went to school. They cared if we were playing sports. You can believe it. I got chewed out more and more daily for not having a sport or doing something during that time. I rarely had someone give me an opinion about, we're missing school. This may not be a good thing. I love sports too. 4 boys, that the outdoors and the athletics plays a huge part in our home. But think about that. What are the demands? What do our parents want? They kind of expect this, that entitlement side. They expect a great education, their kids to come out perfect and know those things, and they want to enjoy these other things. Yes? Maybe? Y'all got to shake your head up and down, or are we just going to move on with Skittles? Remote instruction, enrollment trends, I think we'll continue to see. Higher ed troubles me as well. I think you're working hard at the K-12 level, but I'm not seeing a lot of that same thing at they're losing about 1 million students a year across the board, so they're going to reach into what we do and how you do it. And your teaching and your instruction level is key. But they'd much rather them come to a university early and leave late, i.e. a 7-year, 8-year plan for students, right? Most of our students can pass the majority of the basic college courses when they finish the 10th grade. And so they go off and it's easy or trouble and really has only thing to do with attendance, and they struggle if there's not a purpose behind it. Think about that and sort of what you're doing. Are your kids taking the hardest classes at your school? But this higher education piece is having an impact on us at K-12. You're the one sort of holding the line education-wise across the country, hands down. And I know I'm standing on a university stage and probably shouldn't say that. There are some that are light in that darkness, but as far as the majority of where our students are going and those kind of things, there's some issues. Yes, agree? Increased scrutiny over policies and practices, teacher shortages, you can see the list. But I think all of that noise sort of affects us. And with that, let's paint the picture of sort of where do we sit. So where will your school be, as we look at numbers, where will your school be 10, 15, 20 years from now? Some of you may not be teaching, some of you may. But where will your school be, and what kind of product is it producing? I.e., what kind of student graduate comes out of your school? Have you gotten rid of the dysfunction? Have you focused in on how to fix the issues? Elementary, middle, high school. What do you want those students to hold? You say, well, Shane, I only do this. What did he say, Will Smith? He said, dance right here, stay right here. I just stay right here. Y'all got to laugh a little bit. Are we achieving in the classroom? Raise your hand. Do you think you're achieving in your classrooms? Your students are achieving in your classrooms? You? Be proud of it. Absolutely. Great teachers work to do. And it's not the level. You know, we're going to show you some data. And that's where my background is, sort of research and data. I can make data say anything. I've bought billboards before and sort of finagled. We all had 30s on our ACT. We might not have all had 30s, but anyway, the data set that I used, we did. Solid marketing. Anyway, another day, another story. But the thing there has to do with kind of, do we peel the level back and look at all students? And are we moving sort of that common or middle group, and are we moving the bottom group? And how are we handling them? All right, so we're going to spend a little bit of time here. So let me tell you what's on the stage, and you have this in front of you, but this is Mississippi's numbers. And I know the be-all, end-all is not ACT. I'm not preaching standardized tests, but there's very few instruments we have to sort of take a snapshot of what students are achieving. A lot of us have some type of college preparatory in our mission statement, and so to look at it sort of in being prepared. Do I think every kid needs to go to college? Absolutely not. Do I think every kid that leaves our school needs to be prepared to go to college? Absolutely yes. There should be no question that if they step out of your doors and that they could be successful at the next level, that their academic prowess should be, that they should be successful. Agree? I hope so. We just training down here, Shane. Just like y'all in Mississippi, we're right here. I'm kidding. So what I did was take Mississippi's numbers as a whole. I took the government school, and then I took us. So you're talking 40,000 students. You're talking juniors and seniors. You can see the sample size out there on the right. And this is sort of pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. And this is college benchmark, so this is not scores. Is it setting in yet? The red's not a good thing. Where were we before? And the other week, and I always brag, hey, we're 4 points Mississippi higher than government schools. If you do whatever, those sort of sales pitches that we have, we talk about the kids in our school that have 30 or 25 or better, and we talk about those, and that's sort of in our advertising material. But what I did with heads is sort of peel this back and look at it. So think about this. And the readiness standards, you know what they mean. It means that they're 50% sort of likely to make a B in that corresponding course in college, or 75% to make a C or better. A C or better in the corresponding college course. And the thresholds are not very high. So what do we see? If you look and you see sort of the decrease in sort of there, but look at ours in a junior class. So sitting at 60, pretty good, but it's only an 18 benchmark. But we've dropped 10 points during the pandemic. Percentage. Math and science has always been a battle for us and to find great teachers in this area. Why do we struggle in math? Because we teach process and not the why. If we just teach process, all I got to do is have a computer or a phone, And if I know how to punch it in, guess what? I got it. Yes? Then you go to build a house, and then all of a sudden it looks like this. I'm struggling right now. I'm doing some remodeling, and my geometry is weak. My measurements are, My wife's not happy. We probably will hire someone that comes in that understands a great learner. Different story. But look at the numbers. And that's a total picture. That's children that have been in our schools for a period of time. This is the students, it's a collection of it that we're clipping out. How do you like to put in your advertising material, 14% of our children are ready to go to college in math? Woohoo! Sign up today. We've got the best math teachers in the whole area. It looks good on a billboard, doesn't it? But it's easy for the high school teachers to say, that's not my fault. And they weren't prepared. They can't do decimals and fractions. This geometry or this algebra is not going to mean much to them. They don't know their multiplication facts. We're going to struggle. Elementary is going to say it's not our fault they weren't here. We taught that. Middle school should do something about that. The other is if you looked at your curriculum in elementary, are you skipping things? One of the schools that was ahead of, we had some issues. We had some great students, but we were struggling with some of the material in that we were skipping a book. We thought our kids were so bright that we were skipping a book. We just happened to skip over sort of a key component of fractions and decimals. And so it wasn't showing up until they hit algebra 2. And we wanted to know why. Do you know why? And can you answer the questions of why? We struggled with writing. Look at, this is problematic. Can our children communicate? Do we make our children write? We say, sure we do. We make them write papers. We do things at the end, sort of a culmination. When they get to high school, they're doing AP Lit, they're doing AP English and all of this. That's not what I mean. Do you have a purposeful, driven behind what you do with writing in elementary school? That's where great writers are built. Yes? We'll talk about some of those ideas tomorrow. One of the things that I pushed with our folks that we're sitting at 15 and 8%, sort of a total package. And 90+% of our schools have college preparatory or some type of academic excellence and rigor in their title. And here it is. The other is that I'm concerned I didn't put this year's numbers on the slide because it doesn't paint a good picture. Let that sink in a little bit. So this is the culmination, sort of what's there, and look at the numbers. And don't go out of here and don't print these slides off and say, look at Mississippi, we're better. And y'all use us as a reference point. If you move to South Carolina or Florida or whatever, we're really good. You can laugh, it's okay. We laugh at ourselves in Mississippi. We thank the Lord for Louisiana all the time. This one's a little bit different picture. So this is Aspire. So we're talking 5th through about 9th, 10th grade. Pandemic, post. This is at the heart of our schools. You look at those points represent 1 to 3 months behind. Maybe you don't see it. Maybe it's not in any of your schools. But I would tell you, the more I dig into schools and more that I require of them, I find that this is the issue. This is troubling. The other slide may be problematic, but that's sort of the end. And I think you can capture some of those. I think the ACT, you can look at all of those. But this is sort of when we still have a lot of control over what happens in middle school. The other thing that I think is troubling with this is that a majority of our schools have a lot of new entries in at the middle school age range, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and sort of what's there. So when I tell you that populations are increasing in our schools or people wanting to get in, we're giving you some trouble. It's hard to teach a class when you've got students here and when you've got students here, correct? It is. You find yourself teaching here and pacifying or sort of whatever here, right? It's fair. It's a difficult process. But I think the struggle you see here is just look at math across the board. Look at English and look what's happening. Look at reading. How do you fix that? The other is, are you aware? You can't unsee this now. So my challenge to you is look at your numbers truthfully. We have got to get past sort of our feelings around numbers. I didn't make this mess, so I don't want to talk about it. But I may have been a little complicit in it because I didn't do what I should have done. So we don't want to talk about it. But I think for us, the real key for us moving forward, for us moving dysfunction, you know how to fix this, yes? Please say yes. Shake your head. If I told you and I put you in a room and I showed you these numbers and it was one child and then we talked to them and we sort of engaged in their process of where they are learning-wise and we really tore into these numbers, you would see the issues and you would know how to fix it, right? But we've made you so busy and we don't look at these things, we sort of pass over it, right? And we won't even talk about the test has gotten easier, they've changed some of it. That's a whole nother day. Yes? All right, y'all kind of need to get a little happier. So a couple of things with that. This is the stage that we'll set up that we'll talk about tomorrow. What are the answers? But these are the issues. And so as you look at them, you look at sort of remote learning. What did remote learning do to us? If kids, the only reason they want to come to school is to have a relationship with you and to see their peers, we just threw total chaos into it. They were already apathetic from when we started this, and now they're going, why? Right? One of the biggest things that you see in government schools is the kids are just not going back to school. Just not going back to school. And so, not a matter of it, just not. But think about what that does to us nationally. Think about our big cities. Think about the issues at hand. Think about the literacy rate and sort of some of those things. What are we doing? We're piling millions upon millions or millions of dollars into education. And what are we doing? Childcare, and we're feeding. There's no way to soft sell it. But the other thing is you stand in contrast to that. But you're still driving in that same car. Ooh, it'll work. It's got wheels. We still do this. I'm good in my classroom. The head of school is happy. We're good to go. But because you fragmented or because you sexualized it or whatever, is it really making sort of that lifelong impact in the lives of our children? And then you add that crazy fear factor of parents, and there's a whole other aspect of what the pandemic did to our parents and the nature of school. The things we'll talk about today is what the pandemic did and what it exposed. English language, can our children communicate? We can communicate with a phone, but outside of that, we don't. Okay? Basic skills development, what's the greatest area of concern? That's a good question for you. What's the greatest area of concern? Is it elementary? Raise your hand if you think it's elementary. Raise it high, be proud of your vote. Middle school? A little more. High school? Did you vote for the area in which you teach? I think it's all of those areas, but I think they sort of work together. I think that the more children we get in elementary school, I think elementary school is going to have to be extremely rigorous, and you're going to have to change some time. Middle school has got to look at it different, and we will give you some solutions, I hope, to think about middle school. And then high school, you sort of peel the lid off already. Are we using those resources around us? Are we making our children that are in our school servants? Are they serving others? Are they using their gifts? Can they articulate what they believe? Those are sort of all capstones of a great education. But are we really doing those? Do people look at kids from your school and say, I wish my kids were like that? Do they look at your own kids and say, I wish my kids were like that? That we look at great families and we look at great schools and we look what's coming out. We've read the end of the book. We know the answer. There is victory. Absolutely. But if you read the book leading up to the end, it's not a pretty voyage. And our children need to be prepared. And are we doing them that service? Are they great? Have they had the rigor so that they can be prepared? Are you using the resources around you? The greatest STEM class I've ever seen happened to be in Louisiana. I know I talked about it a minute ago, but it was a crop dusting class. More math and science than I've seen. And then the element of a daredevil, whew, you had it all. It was outstanding. Not everybody in that class was going to be a crop duster, no. But he gave me an appreciation for the math that's required, for the technical skills that are required, and sort of what they do so that I can eat every day. That's great STEM. What are you doing? Are your kids, do they know how to work? Yes? No? The last two, and we'll sort of finish it up as we sort of think through the problem, because it's hard to sort of stop and not talk about the answer or what I see as a solution. And I don't mean that I'm an expert on it. I think we've tried some things. I think we've seen some things. I think there's great people doing pockets of things all across our country. But we in education are very isolated. You're taking that first step. One of the purposes we wanted to do as an association is take great teachers and great leaders to other schools and see what they're doing. If you're not visiting 2 or 3 schools a year and stealing ideas and sort of growing, looking at, and I don't care if they're way up here and they have all the resources or they're way down here. I think anytime we as educators step in another building, step in another classroom and look at it, we take something away. And I haven't met an educator yet that wouldn't share those ideas with you. Yes? If I came to your school and asked you for help, you'd give me everything you had, probably. Here's a thumb drive, and here it is. It's true. But we are so busy that I think it's affecting us. And we're not really looking at the numbers. And then social skills. Is that important? Are we sure? We're in relationships, so we need to know how to function. We talk to boards often, and I said, I can parade 2 kids in here. One has a great understanding of soft skills, and the other is highly educated and probably can cure cancer and solve the world's problems. But you're going to hire the guy with soft skills every day of the week. Because it's a relationship aspect, unless it's a technical job. True? Shake your head up and down. Or at least come out of the sugar coma that you've been eating Skittles just to stay happy. Are you meeting the needs of parents or their expectations? They're customers, right? Or no? Maybe. Depending on how you view them. So when we put in our brochures and our advertisements, we're covering all 4 subjects at an 8% success rate. We're using a borrowed system from the government. And we're going to talk about Jesus. You can laugh, but the truth hurts a little bit, right? I can make fun of Mississippi because we're battling against it. And I think they're great people that are called to do what you do, that are working hard to it. But I think you have to peel back and look at it. And if you're not doing this in your school, then I think we're doing a disservice. And I don't know that we're meeting the expectations of parents. Ouch. The one thing that they say they love is you. Not a lot about school besides lunch that they like except you. And we just saw a report card. Why don't you think about sitting down with a parent and saying, Johnny's only made about an 8 out of 100. He might get it sooner or later. I've had him for 8 hours a day. But we colored a lot. We've walked around a lot. We played outside. And I'm not saying any of those things are not important. But your purpose is academic rigor and getting to the heart of education. And I think we need to do that. It's not all fun. It's not daycare. It's not camp. It's rigorous in its education, and sometimes it's painful. The other is that we're coming in with some levels of struggle. Yes? We're asking a lot of you as teachers. I know that. But I think you're equipped with power if you sort of know and you're willing to sort of sit with a group of your teachers, whether it's divisions of elementary, middle, and high school, and really talk about the problem and get to the root of it. And it's not personal. It's not personal. If the pandemic did anything, it gave us a reset on the personal side. We're all messed up. And I don't mean us messed up, but our system is sort of messed up. It gave us a free lens. We have to see it as an opportunity that God put in front of us. He allowed it to happen. All those things are there. We have to believe that. So how do we capitalize on it, use it, and prepare our students for what's next? Yes? Yes? Amen. Hallelujah. Thank you. We don't get the opportunity to sit together. Do you have a purpose? And are you on a mission about your purpose? Are you serving those children that are called into your classrooms? Yes? Let me pray for you and we'll close. Most gracious Heavenly Father, I just thank you for this group. I thank you for the schools and the families they represent. Father, I pray for them that you would open their eyes, that you would equip them to be leaders in charge of their classroom. I pray that you'd give them a vision to see that if change needs to be made or movement needs to be made, that they would be a part of that they would be agents for you and change inside of a school, that the light might be bright and it might shine brightly for the rest to see. Father, I ask that you give them rest. I ask you to give them comfort. I'd ask you to protect their families. And that you just watch over them. Govern our time, our rest of our time and our conversation, and we thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Shane. That was great. Very thought-provoking. All right, as we wrap up, there is your code word if you need that. It's the word landscape. Just notice that it is all lowercase. Just a reminder about two things. Our next sessions will begin at 2:50 back in the Alumni Building if you want to go to breakout sessions there. I also want to invite you to stay here if you would like. At 2:50 we will start. We're going to be recording a podcast with Shane, and we'll be talking about education in a post-pandemic world. Imagine that. It's perfectly what we're talking about. So if you'd love to stay, we would love to have you, and not only to listen, but also to participate with your questions if you would like to do that. So if so, take a break and then come back here. We'll start about 2:50. Otherwise, back to the Alumni Building. Have a great afternoon.